Hello, and thank you for downloading this podcast. Since the end of August, more than 500,000 Rohingya Muslims have fled their homes in Myanmar seeking refuge in Bangladesh. And in this programme, we're going to focus on one massacre that took place on one day in one village. Partly because this incident is so horrific, it's on such a scale that it demands investigation in its own right. We're talking about mass murder, mass rape, the killings of infants and of children, but also because this isn't an isolated incident. Things like this, albeit on a smaller scale, have been going on throughout northern Rakhine State since August, and in some places they're even continuing to this day. We're talking about the burning of villages, we're talking about what the United Nations has called ethnic cleansing. The Burmese government says that it's trying to root out terrorists, and the army there says that it's innocent of any charges of violence against civilians. But as you'll hear in this programme, we've got some pretty convincing evidence that that isn't the case. And before you start listening, I should warn you that our investigation contains some pretty horrific descriptions of violence, including some very graphic descriptions of sexual violence. Well, we've finally got permission to go through, and it's an extraordinary sight, a sea of people on a long, thin mud ridge, right on the river here in no man's land. The river itself is the frontier between Bangladesh and Myanmar. And these people, many of them look in a terrible state. This is Assignment on the BBC World Service. I'm Gabriel Gatehouse, and before we go any further, I should warn you that this programme contains stories you'll find distressing. I certainly did, with descriptions of extreme violence from the very beginning.
The soldiers surrounded us and made us kneel down by the side of the river. Then they began raping and killing. They tried to slit my throat. I had my baby with me. They snatched him away. They threw him to the ground and killed him.
We don't know exactly how many people have been killed, but we do have a pretty good idea of how many have been burnt and chased out of their homes. What happened in your village?
They just burnt our houses.
Since August, more than 600,000 Rohingya Muslims have sought refuge in the camps in Bangladesh. The Burmese military say they're rooting out terrorists. The United Nations says it's a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. There must be 2,000 people, maybe 3,000 here. A great mass of humanity clamouring for food and for water, for medical attention. There are old ladies who look like they've lost consciousness, young kids who look like they need to see a doctor urgently. These people have been waiting to cross into Bangladesh for several days. Now, finally, they're here. In this edition of Assignment on the BBC World Service, I'm going to focus on the events of one day, of one massacre in one village. Its name is Tula Toli. We've come to these refugee camps to find survivors of the Tula Toli massacre. We've spoken to 6 of them, cross-referencing their testimony with video evidence, absolutely horrific pictures, and with maps of the local area, as well as interviews collected by human rights organisations. What emerges is a picture of systematic violence.
It
was the 30th of August. We saw soldiers coming from the north. It was 8 in the morning.
Mohammed Suleiman, a father of 7 daughters, was about to have his breakfast when the soldiers burst into the village.
They shot at everyone in their way. They set fire to every house in their path. There were 150 soldiers from the Burmese army. They were shooting and burning houses as they marched.
It was terrifying to watch. The soldiers had weapons that can shoot 300, 350 bullets at a time. It makes a sound like this. It clears everything in its path.
That's Noor Kabir, one of the village elders of Tula Toli. Okay, so if I just show you this map of Tula Toli, stick it up like this. So this is the village. Can you show me where it all began? Where the soldiers came from in the morning? Mr. Kabir points to the spot where the soldiers entered the village from the north. Tula Toli consists of a number of settlements, surrounded on three sides by the meandering flow of a river. In previous days, soldiers had set fire to other villages on the opposite bank of the river. That Wednesday morning, the 30th of August, they crossed into Tula Toli. There was panic. Mohammed Suleiman again.
The people in the village scattered in fear. Near our village there is a riverbank. We were scared, so we gathered there. On one side there is a Buddhist village, and on the other side was the military. The soldiers surrounded us. There were about 2,000 of us.
We've been given some mobile phone footage taken from the opposite bank of the river. You can see people collecting by the water's edge. With the soldiers advancing from the northwest and a police post to the south, many of the villagers ran east. They ended up on the riverbank. They were trapped. Anora Begum was one of those trying to get away.
After burning our houses, the army came down from the riverbank and made everyone gather. Some of them told the women, "Give us your jewellery." These were local Buddhist civilians. We could tell from the language they spoke. They were asking for our jewellery and money. Then the soldiers separated the men from the women. Then they began killing the men.
Did you see this with your own eyes?
Yes, we saw it.
So, Anura, can you just show me on this map? So this is Tula Toli, here's the bend in the river. Anora points to where she and others swam across the river, downstream, where it was narrow enough to cross. They used banana trees and plastic canisters as life rafts. From the opposite bank, they watched the horror unfold.
They started snatching babies from their mothers' arms and throwing them to the ground. Then they hit them with bamboo sticks and rifle butts.
They started lining up the dead bodies on the riverbank, but a few people were still alive. They started hitting them on their heads to finish them off.
The soldiers forced some of the people who were still alive to dig pits. Then they put the bodies in the pits and burned them, along with their blankets and bags.
And then we were shown some more footage. Even more shocking than the last. Well, somebody's just brought us a mobile phone now with some video on it. And it shows the bend in the river and children, dead children, floating in the water. One by one, they get fished out. First one that looks to be about 5 or 6 years old, then a younger child, and finally a child that looks no more than about 1 year of age. Oh my God, the voice in the video says. She's been shot. Her brains have come out. This is a really, really gruesome bit of film. It turns out Anora knows these children well.
They're my neighbour's children. The mother's name is Arofa, and the father is Matamin. They're all from the same family. 12 of them. All of them died.
The 3 dead children in the video were Rashida, 5 years old, Kushida, 3, and Zahidu, who was 11 months. Anora Begum, her husband and her 4 children all managed to escape with their lives. Mohammed Suleiman was not so fortunate. He shows me a family photograph. 3 of his 7 daughters were killed, so was their mother. He's clutching his youngest daughter, Shahida, to him as he speaks.
My child often cries for her mother. What will we do without her? My child asks for her mother. How can I bring her back?
The latest violence in Myanmar began 5 days before the massacre at Tula, on the 25th of August, when members of a militant group known as the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army attacked a number of police posts, killing 12. The Burmese military says it was this attack that prompted it to begin what it calls clearance operations, hunting down militants across Rakhine State. That was 3 months ago, and boats filled with refugees are still coming over. There's a woman stepping out of a boat. They burnt our houses 15 days ago, she says. The overwhelming majority of people in Myanmar are Buddhists. The Rohingya Muslims make up only a small minority overall. But in Rakhine State, the region that borders Bangladesh, they might be in the majority if it weren't for the fact that so many have fled. Now, some have accused the Burmese government of using the attacks by the militants as a pretext for a vicious and indiscriminate crackdown against Rohingya civilians. The Bangladeshi authorities monitor what goes on the other side of the border. And I've been told that from the beginning of August, so about 3 weeks before the violence started, they noticed an increase in military activity on the Myanmar side. Now, if that's true, that would suggest an element of preparation for the violence that followed. And this is a suggestion that we've heard corroborated by some of the witnesses we've spoken to as well. We were told about an incident that happened nearly 2 weeks before the massacre at Tula and before the militant attacks on the police posts. Mohammed Suleiman.
70 border policemen came at night. At dawn, they gathered everyone from the village. The men, women and children. All were taken to the yard in front of the mosque. They said, "We have been telling you to hand over the bad people, the militants. Why are you not handing them over?"
The militant group, were they trying to recruit people in the village? Was there some truth to that?
I never saw any militants in our village. I never saw anybody with any weapons. I only saw people from my village. If there aren't any militants, how can I help the authorities catch them?
Witnesses from Tula said the policemen were called in by the village administrator, a local Buddhist government official. A few days later, that same village administrator called a meeting. As Noor Kabir explains, elders from both communities, Muslim and Buddhist, were asked to sign a kind of peace treaty.
We signed an agreement that said that the Muslims wouldn't attack the Buddhist villages and the Buddhists wouldn't attack the Muslim villages.
Was that unusual, to be asked to do something like that?
It was unusual. The local commander of the border police also signed it.
The Rohingya of Tula Toli say they saw that document as an explicit guarantee of their safety. It was because of this that they stayed in their homes even when other villages were being burnt. Now they believe the administrator double-crossed them.
He said, "It will be my responsibility. The Buddhist villagers will not attack the Muslim villagers. If anything happens, I take responsibility." Then he signed the document. He knew everything. Nothing happens without his permission.
Almost everyone we spoke to mentioned this village administrator, the local government representative. His name is Ang Kyo Singh. He would accuse the villagers of supporting the militants, some said. Others, that he tried to force them to register as foreigners. Another Rohingya village elder, Nobi Hussain, told me that before the massacre, he and Mr. Singh had been in regular contact. Do you have his phone number? Can you call him?
Yes, I can.
Human rights investigators and journalists have been trying to talk to this man for months. None have managed to contact him until now. Mr. Hussain lost a son and 3 grandchildren in the attack. Now, over a crackly phone line, he accuses the village administrator of complicity in the massacre.
We had a written agreement that there would be no killing in Tula Toli. That's what put our people in danger.
I didn't know the soldiers were coming. If they'd warned me, I would have let you know.
People are saying you could have stopped the killing.
No, I couldn't. The military doesn't listen to a village administrator. They could have killed me too.
But I've never heard of a village administrator being killed.
Oh yes, it could happen. It could happen.
At the end of the conversation, Mr. Hussain seems unconvinced. Do you believe him?
No, I don't. He was definitely involved. Otherwise something like this couldn't have happened.
I think this must be the muddiest game of football in the world. There's a couple of dozen guys kicking a ball about. Literally, the middle of the pitch is a mud stream. Every so often the mud-splattered ball goes whack into the spectators on the side, but nobody really seems to mind. The majority of Myanmar's Rohingya Muslims have, by now, already fled. Dispossessed and stateless, the mud-soaked camps of Bangladesh are what they must, for now, call home. The Burmese government says its military operations in Rakhine State are in response to attacks by the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army on the 25th of August. But what about those reports of troop movements weeks before the militant attacks? Well, we're on our way now to meet an officer in the Bangladeshi border guard who might know more about this and might be willing to talk to us. Hello, Major.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
You're fine.
Good. The Major said he wasn't authorised to give the BBC a recorded interview. But we did have a conversation with him, and he said I could quote him with the following. That they saw from around the 5th of August a huge concentration, those are his words, of Burmese military in the border area. He said, apart from burning people's huts, they extorted money and valuables from them. I asked him what the purpose of all of this was, and he said they're trying to make Rakhine State Rohingya-free. By late morning on the 30th of August, on the riverbank at Tula Toli, dozens of people had already been murdered. But it wasn't over yet. Some villagers had escaped by swimming across the river, but many remained behind, especially younger women who'd been separated from the rest by the soldiers. Those who survived endured an ordeal of almost unimaginable horror.
They made us kneel in the water, then they began moving us into huts, 5 at a time. They were hitting and slashing at us with knives to force us inside.
This is Mumtaz. She's 30 years old and she's been badly burnt. She has a bandage stuck to her face and scars all over her hands and legs. As she speaks, she makes stabbing motions with her arms to describe what happened.
They raped me. They pushed a bamboo stick into my vagina. Then they started beating my breasts. After they raped me, they left me for dead, lying on the floor.
Mumtaz was not alone. Rashida, who's 21, was locked into another hut, along with 4 other women.
After they shut the door, they did whatever they wanted with us. They began beating us. They slaughtered some of the women, stabbing them. They tried to kill me by slitting my throat.
Rashida was lucky to survive. She shows me the scars behind her ear and across her neck.
They thought I was dead, and they left me there. When I woke up, I saw the soldiers had set fire to the house.
Then they started burning us. I saw it happen. I heard the sound of the fire and the stabbing of the knives. Their knives were so sharp, they cut people to pieces. I could hear them stab, stab, stab.
Severely burnt and wounded, Mumtaz managed to crawl to safety and eventually escape under cover of darkness. She came to Bangladesh with her 7-year-old daughter, Razia. She shows us 2 red scars on Razia's head, each the length of a finger, where she too was beaten by the soldiers. Mumtaz's other children did not survive. One of them, she says, was burnt to death.
I had 3 sons. 1 was thrown into a fire. 2 were beaten to death with bamboo sticks in front of my eyes. Their father was shot dead.
At least one other survivor of the Tuli massacre has reported that her young child was thrown into a fire. Others, like Rashida, had infants torn from their arms.
When we were taken into the house, they tried to snatch my child from me. I resisted. But they took him from me and smashed him to the floor. They killed him.
Mumtaz is still young, but because of her injuries, she walks like an old woman, making her way slowly and painfully along the muddy paths of the camp.
My body hurts. My head is burning. I can't move properly because of my burns.
The men who raped her, who killed her children, were soldiers. But like others, she told us that Buddhist civilians took part in the attack that day as well, demanding money and valuables.
These are the local Buddhist people. They were with the military. They're from a neighbouring village. I don't know their names, but I know their faces.
Mumtaz and Rashida saw people who were once their neighbours suddenly turn on them. People who'd lived alongside them for years, now sided with the soldiers who destroyed their lives. Why do you think they did this?
I don't know why. We used to go to their village. We used to talk. If we needed to borrow something, we'd talk. I keep asking myself, why did they rape us? Why did they kill my parents and rape the other girls? I can't find any answers.
We don't know exactly how many people were killed at Tula Toli that day. Noor Kabir, the village elder, has been collecting names in his notebook. He's got 410 so far. I wondered about the Buddhist village administrator, Ankyo Singh. No one we spoke to said he personally took part in the attack, and it seems unlikely a local civilian official could have stopped the powerful Burmese military. But still, there remains the question of whether he deliberately misled the Rohingya villagers into believing that they would be safe in their homes. So we decided to call him up again. Hello, sir. It's the BBC here. Just to say, we're recording this call. Can I ask you, why did you not warn the villagers that the army was going to come in?
I didn't know it would happen like that. I didn't know when it would happen. If I had known, I would not have kept silent.
The people here say that you wanted the Rohingya out of the village, that you wanted them gone.
That's not up to me. This is government policy. It has nothing to do with me. It's a decision made by people above me.
We asked the Burmese government for a response to the evidence of a massacre at Tula Toli. They never got back to us. The military says all allegations of killing of civilians or of rape are untrue. Meanwhile, the violence in Rakhine State continues. The United Nations has called it ethnic cleansing. Others prefer the term genocide. By whatever name you call it, the massacre at Tula Toli was a monstrous crime. A crime the Burmese authorities are not investigating. Every evening on the border, more people try to cross from Myanmar to safety in Bangladesh. New arrivals say their villages are still being burnt, that they're still being chased and terrorized from their homes. Before the massacre, the Rohingya population of Tula Toli was 4,480. Now, there are none left. And maybe that's exactly what the Burmese government wants. That's all from this edition of Assignment. I'm Gabriel Gatehouse. The producer was John Murphy, and the programme was mixed by James Beard. To hear more from the series, go to bbcworldservice.com/assignment.